I'm back in Berlin, but so wow, yeah, this was a hard one to schedule. I guess we're in the middle of the teaching touring season. So, what do you guys share? Where you guys are at?
I mean, I don't know. Okay, I'm living in France, so I am maybe in the middle of teaching and touring, but I am also in the middle of strike, and so I try to manage to do the teaching, the concerts, and the master class. I mean everything, and change all the time the train because so you know it's. I hope I will be able to make everything. I don't know. I still hope.
So you're in Maastricht this week?
Yeah, just today and tomorrow, and after that I have to go to south of France by train. And
Good luck.
I do everything. I try to do the maximum by train now, because
Yeah.
you know, obvious reason, but it's not the best time for this.
Yeah. What about you, Fabio? You've been in London, and I think you're in Alicante now. No?
That's right. Yeah, I was teaching in London last week, and now I'm doing my seminar here in Alicante. The problem here in Spain, especially here in Alicante, is not to enjoy the place too much. Otherwise, you don't teach. I mean, you just have fun.
No, it's a great place, and it must be so warm at this time. Like last year, I was there for business, and yeah, the difference was just striking. It was like 0 degrees in Berlin, and then you go there, and it's like 24 or like 20, and then you're eating paella, and like it's just awesome.
Yeah. It's expected to go up to 30 on Sunday.
No.
But today.
Okay, that makes me worried a little bit.
Fabio, it looks like you are like me in a very exciting looking, nice looking hotel. I see behind. Yeah, it's like me.
They are very welcoming here for sure.
So Fabio, maybe we can just not a surprise, right? I mean, the quick introductions again. Alvaro. I'm a guitarist, former guitarist, person in business now, but like still pretty engaged with the community, and love to have these conversations with two of the greatest active guitarists and greatest maestros, in the circuit right now, Judicael Fabio and Fabio Sanon. And not only do they teach in top conservatories in Geneva, in Royal Academy of Music, but they also tour around as teachers, and in addition to performing. So that is kind of what I wanted to talk about today. It was like this concept of starting your career as a teacher, right, which is what most people will do by default, and then continuing to improve. But before that, it's interesting. Like, so Judicael, you go all over the place. You teach so much. Like, you both are two of the people that I see are all over, teaching so much in multiple continents, right? So how do you keep up the level? Because and let me start with this, right? I was having a conversation with David Russell like maybe 10 years ago, and we were chatting about. I was finishing my studies in guitar, and then he was saying, "It's like, yeah, I mean, I saw that other people that went into the conservatories, started teaching full time, etc. But then they started playing less good, and I see that a lot, right? You see people that maybe are winning competitions, etc. Then they settle down, they finish that phase of their life, they start teaching a lot, and then they don't have time to practice like as if they were in a competition, and you can notice that, right? But when I see you both, it's like, it's not like that. But maybe it's just me. Like, maybe I'm not noticing it. So I guess, like, to kick things off, it's like, do you feel that that's true? Do you feel that you were playing better before when you were just practicing? Or do you think that you are constantly continuing to keep the level and getting better even as you teach so much?
Well, okay. If you don't mind me starting, the thing is that I don't see myself primarily as a teacher. Of course, I love to teach, and I do some, but back in Brazil, for instance, I don't have student. I have only one regular student. I never had a position as a teacher. And even in London, of course, my position is not a regular position of somebody who teaches every week. I'm a visiting professor, so I only come there once every 3 months or so. So this is not the pattern that my professional life has followed. That's all. Of course, I'm always teaching in festivals, teaching master classes here and there. And nowadays, I always tell my students, study teaching, think about that, try to get more information about that. First of all, because if you're going to teach, things are changing very quickly. There are lots of information that we have now that we didn't have 40 years ago, and we have to be responsible towards the students. That's the first thing. Second thing is, in my case, it was not a primary thing. That's all. I don't know how to explain that. I've never had a regular position as a kind of university teacher. Maybe because in Brazil, where I first studied and where I come from, universities they are very how can I say bureaucratic, and they have a very clear hierarchy. So if you don't go through the whole process of doing master's degree and PhD and writing very long dissertations and spending many hours doing all the academic obligations, you simply cannot have that. Whereas in London, I have a much more flexible position. I mean, of course, I have to respond for what I do, but it's not the kind of thing that, I mean, you have to do a strong academic career. But yeah, I just hope that I managed to help people somehow. But yeah, back in Brazil, I have only one student. Now I'm coming to the point in my life where having a proper teaching position in a major conservatory might be an attractive perspective at this point. I mean, I've done a lot of performing. I'm at a point in my life where many times I feel that practicing more and more and more hours doesn't add much to what I do. So I've managed to manage somehow. But still, I see myself primarily as a performer who teaches rather than a teacher who performs.
What about you, Judicael? I mean,
I guess it's pretty different because I can't say what I've seen myself primary, but probably if I had to choose between both activity, I would choose to teach very clearly. And I teach each week the same student. I have let's say that I have about very near 30 students that I see each week.
Jesus.
Yeah, 15 in Geneva.
It's kind of insane. Yeah.
I mean, 15 in Geneva, 8 in Lille, and 4-5 private students. And all of them are good players, you know. So really, I mean, so I teach them each week, I would say, you know, or at least more than 25 times a year. So it's a very important activity. About my practicing, I'm kind of lucky because I was never practicing. In fact, I was learning pieces, and when I know the piece, I just don't practice at all. So I can keep this rhythm, in fact, of practicing. When I was younger, for example, after Judicael, I didn't have so much concept, so I wasn't practicing except when I was learning. So I was learning a piece. If the piece was difficult, I was taking time. If the piece wasn't difficult, I was learning quickly. And after that, when I knew the pieces, I wasn't practicing at all. So I could stop during 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, without really noticing. I was not practicing. So it's a little bit the same thing. For example, lately I didn't have concert during 3 weeks, so I didn't touch the guitar because the new piece I was supposed to play, I just know it now. So I was all time like this. But the thing I noticed now I'm getting older, I will be 50 very soon. It takes more time for me to learn the piece. Not to learn, but to have the piece inside my body. I mean, you know, all the pieces I learned before, let's say my 18, I know it. I know them. Even if I don't play during 10 years, I know them. And I have the feeling that now I need much more time to be at the point that I don't forget the piece. That's the big difference, and it takes for me more time. So if I want to be positive, I say that I have much more knowledge to put in the music, so it takes more time. If I am more less positive or maybe more realist, I just getting older, so it becomes a bit more difficult. This is why chess players are less good at 15 and 30, and this is for the same reason that you lose some brain activity. Of course, you can gain some other stuff, but when it's just pure learning, it's just a little bit more difficult, I would say. But I can't say I play better or worse. I really don't know, and I prefer probably to.
So for both of you, right? Like very different approaches, and I think to a very like the heart of the question goes beyond. I guess it had to do with teaching or being busy, right? Like it just continue to develop yourself after, because I think that a lot of the people who listen to this, maybe students, right, who admire both of you, and that who are at that point in which they're going to go from being a student or a competitor to just continue on their own, right? So that is very interesting to me. Like how do you conceive? How can you be your own teacher and continue to develop for the decades then that you have after? Because I remember, Judicael, in your case, right? There's this fairly famous kind of videos that you did on your living room, kind of just practicing the partita, for instance, right? And there were very different versions of that when you were like, okay, first try, I just learned this kind of thing, and then like sometime later, and then is that something? Can you speak a little bit about that? Like, what was that process? Do you do that often for?
The process for me when I learn a piece is I just play the piece from the beginning to the end, very extremely badly at the beginning. And I just repeat it. I repeat. And after a while, the thing fixed by themselves. On the past, I wasn't writing anything on my score. And now I write stuff because I write very little, to be honest. But I write a little bit something just to don't forget what I find. But I used to don't write anything on my score, just repeating. And after that, I just knew the piece. So I was thinking that maybe it wasn't the best way to learn. I mean, I would never give this advice, but at least it was working for me. And we both do guitar for a very long time. And I guess I started like that when I was a kid, except I didn't really change. I'm just repeating from beginning to the end, and I never do some passages because the thing is I really hate the process of learning the piece. So I just try to learn it, and after that I'm fine with it. But I really hate so much that I prefer to don't think and just learn. It's just my way. It was the same.
But how do you make decisions on interpretation, for instance? Like we talked a couple of times of like you played the Bach, for instance, a little bit different now than before.
Yes, I mean, I don't know. I have the feeling that it's a little bit with the same thing with photo. When you don't know how to do photo, you just do a bunch of photo. Now you don't have to pay for anything, and you do like 1,000 photo, and sometimes there is one which is okay. It's just luck, except that I play the way how it comes, and when I listen what I do, and sometimes I get lucky and it's nice, and so when it's nice, I say okay, that's nice, and I keep it. This is how I do, because if I try to decide too much with my brain, I will decide, I will block myself because I will think that a lot of things can't work. And the thing I notice for myself is when you get older, you have a lot of you know more things, and the things you know sometimes might block you to try things because you think that it won't work. And so I do like this.
So it's more of a kind of organic kind of thing. I have the sense, Fabio, that it might be different for you. I don't know. Is it, or do you also have kind of this kind of organic way of learning, way of approach to developing your playing?
It is a bit different, but not much, to be honest. I'm very fast at learning, like Judicael. I mean, I pick up a new piece, unless it's something completely unusual. Of course, if you give me, let's say, Elliot Carter's Changes, that is a very unusual piece, so it would take longer to learn. But anything that is more standard repertoire, I just play many times for a couple of days. After that couple of days, I start to make an idea of what I want the piece to sound like. And then the fingering comes very naturally, very quickly, and I memorize the piece very quickly. Essentially, that's it. Memorizing has never been a problem for me, unless I don't memorize chamber music. I don't see the point. And there's this thing of, I have a curiosity for music that I cannot control. I'm conducting a program of Sibelius music in June, and I cannot think of anything else. I'm reading every book that falls in my hands, and listening to other people conducting it, and reading about the guy, and trying to find out ways of making that music sound really beautiful, especially for a public like the one in Brazil that is not very familiar with Sibelius's music. So I'm completely taken by it. So if I can give any advice, is cultivate your curiosity. If you don't have curiosity, you might as well just give up now. I mean, that is the engine behind the artist.
But it sounds like for both of you, that's very interesting, right? So for both of you, the prerequisite for that is to reach a point in which you can grasp, to be able to learn stuff relatively fast. And then it's kind of like, then it becomes second nature. And then it is the information you put in your brain that kind of adds to that level, to that base, let's say. No? More or less?
Maybe. Technically speaking, I've never been a natural technical player. Everything in my technique has been basically hard work. But after I reached a certain age where I could play pretty much everything I wanted, it has stabilized. I'm 57 now. I haven't felt any decline yet. But of course, any technical gain is much slower now. So if I have to learn a piece, a virtuosic piece or anything like that, I look at that and say, well, is it worth it? Because I have to put many hours, many hours to develop a technique that I still don't have. So, for instance, if I had to play, I don't know, Barrio Sequenza now from scratch, I mean, if I had never learned that before, it would take me, the best part of a year to learn it. But just because I had to develop new techniques. But anything that is pretty much standard that I learned up to the age of 28 or something, or 25, to be honest, it has stayed with me. And thanks God, so far I haven't felt any loss. Quite the opposite. Actually, the older I get, the faster I learn.
What about for you, Judicael? Because like you are tackling now some, and in your latest CD, you will release stuff that is I don't know if you would even consider challenging, right? I mean, you're tackling those Rachmaninoff etude arrangements, right? But for you, is it more that it's just new music, or where you like, no, I want to develop something, I want to be able to do something that I couldn't do before?
No, I mean, it's not linked like this. The thing new I did a little bit. I learned I just finished to learn the what was called the third lute suite, which is the cello one with the presto. And I used to don't do ornaments in Bach music. The minimum of the minimum, because I don't know, I start like this, and I have pushed so much my students to do ornaments, and all of them do ornaments, that I decide finally before my 50 to do some ornaments, which I did. So I didn't really learn to do this. I just came naturally, and I was feeling that I didn't have the choice. I mean, I had the feeling that I had to do like this. So it's not really something I couldn't have done before. I just decided to do it now. I don't know, some reason. So I don't know. I might learn also some early music, and I never played that. I mean, I played that when I was a kid, and I really hate these pieces when I was little. So I used to think it was boring, but now I really like it. And so I'm going to learn, but it's not like a new technique or something like this. It's just, I want to do it now. So, yeah, I guess we even if we didn't learn something very specific technically, the way that the music is played has changed a lot 30 years. And of course, we have changed also the way to listen it. I mean, for sure. And if you talk about Baroque, you just have to see how different play the harpsichord player than 40 years ago.
Mhm.
And if I like some harpsichord player of now, it means my taste have changed also because they play so differently that what they do now wouldn't have been accepted 30 years ago. You know, those kind of, if you listen, the main references that was Scott Ross 40 years ago, and now how all of them play, I mean, it's kind of very difficult to like both at the same time. So we change because of that, because the general taste change.
Yeah, and I mean, Jean Rondeau sounds definitely very, very different than
Yes, but
Leonhardt. No?
Jean Rondeau 40 years ago, everybody would have thought that he's a lunatic.
Yeah, exactly.
But really,
yeah. Mhm.
and me too.
The thing is this, right? You both listen to so much music, right? But what I'm hearing now is, I just it's a very organic way to approach your continued relationship with playing and with learning, etc. Right? So how do you? It's not a conscious thing. Like I'm gonna listen. Like how do you like bring in all the information that you're consuming from listening to different artists, going to concerts, etc., with your own playing and development? It might not be one-to-one, right? Like it might not, you might be listening to like something completely different and playing like early music. You might be listening to like, I don't know, Richter playing Prokofiev, and then you're working on a piece by Dowland or something like that. Is that kind of how it is, or are you more kind of listening the stuff that you're playing, or the style?
Okay, Judy.
I don't know. I gave 1 week ago a didactic class in for students to learn how to be teacher in Paris Conservatory, and I asked them what is the best way for them to learn. Is it to have the knowledge of the new style? Is it to listen exactly the same piece and try to copy it? Is it to listen bunch of stuff that looks like similar but not the same? I just asked what was the best way, and I use this example. I have one student, very good, and he had to play the Canción del Emperador, one piece like this. And when he started read the piece and played the piece for me, I just realized that probably never heard such a music because it was so bad and strange, and I didn't understand anything. And actually, I didn't know how to explain because it was coming from zero, and I just put 30 seconds of this song actually, and in 30 seconds, I don't know, everything worked for him, and I knew it would work with him like this. Some other people, they will need much more explanation, much more things. So it really depends. For me, I like to listen a very little moment. For example, when somebody is doing a transcription of a piece I don't know, uh, I listen 10 seconds at the beginning, and if the character totally changed, I just listen 10 more seconds, and I prefer to don't have too much information. That's my style. For example, if I learn a piece by a composer, I will not read anything about him. I will be like this, and maybe when I know the piece, I will want to have more information. But just that's how I work for me. I don't give any advice of that, and probably I would even give the advice of not doing this. I don't know. I just you need to find a way to make yourself to click. I don't know about musicians, but a lot of actors have talked a lot about that, how they do it. And some of them, there is all the time this story. You play a character, you don't see if he has kids and a wife or whatever, but some people will create their own life just to be better to play this role, even if you never see the kids he has on the movie.
Yeah.
And some other, they will not do that. I mean, it really depends.
Yeah, like the taxi driver approach with De Niro, no, versus.
Exactly. Yes. So it depends, I guess.
What about you, Fabio?
I just think that the quest for any artist, especially for performing artists, is to find your own style of learning. Each person will have a different way. My way, of course, I'm not answering your question. I will. But my way of learning music is experimenting. Just here in Alicante, I'm giving a course on transcription. And many people come with half a transcription already done. And they get very attached to it. Oh, they like the piece the way they've conceived that, and the key they have decided to play, and to cut the notes they want to cut. I said, well, first of all, transcribing is not cutting notes. Second, we don't know what is the best key for this piece. You have to play in several different keys to see which one will work best. So first, let's experiment, and then you make up your mind. And many of the musicians that I admire the most tend to be the same. Of course, when you finally play that in concert, it's something that is more, how can I say, more consolidated. You are more assured of the way you play. But the whole process to get to that is a more experimental process. I was just listening the other day to a great friend of mine who is the first horn of the Concertgebouw Orchestra. And she was teaching the students and, just saying the craziest things and encouraging them to play in several different ways. So instead of saying, oh, we have to make a crescendo here because it's written in the score. Well, let's not make a crescendo. Let's make a diminuendo. Let's play that fast. Let's play that slow. Let's make it sound like a butterfly. I mean, she encourages people to do things in the craziest ways so they can develop this kind of suppleness, flexibility of approach that lets your subconscious to come up with ideas that you couldn't imagine before you started to learn the music. But now, replying to your answer, I watch a lot of concerts, and my primary interest in that is I love listening to music. I really have a great time there. It's the best time of my life, really, to go to a great concert like I went last week, to see Evgeny Kissing, to see.
Me too.
To see Paavo Järvi doing Mahler Third. I mean, just the privilege of being in a great hall, watching a great orchestra playing great music. It's already fantastic for me. And sometimes, of course, you absorb things. I mean, you cannot be indifferent to watching somebody as persuasive as Evgeny Kissing. I mean, I didn't like the first half at all, but when he came and played Rachmaninoff, there's something very special about that. You look at the audience and everybody is mesmerized. Everybody, I mean, nobody breathes when he's playing, the slower studies with that beautiful quality of sound. So in a certain way, it reinforces to me the necessity of producing beautiful tone quality and being able to project that in a consistent musical way to the audience. To me, there is no point in having a beautiful sound if people cannot hear it. So.
No, it makes it. Talking about concerts, and Paavo Järvi, I saw him doing the Eroica with the Berliner like 3 weeks ago. Ah, man, I had never seen him live, and I mean, like, wow, just the tempos he takes, like, so interesting, like very like, yeah, no, it was an amazing experience. And yeah, I think that's how we became friends, right? Like we started talking about the different concerts one goes to, and like certain artists.
It's kind of freaky because we see exactly the same concert, even if we don't live at the same place.
I know. We're just kind of like stalkers.
That only means that we are getting old because we have seen the bad ones and we simply don't return.
Yeah. Yeah. What else have you guys seen? So I'm assuming you saw Kissing in Paris?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Playing same thing, Rachmaninoff and first part, wow. Bach and Mozart.
Mozart sonata, that was very weird.
Yes, I totally agree. About the Mozart things. It was kind of heavy and heavy.
Yeah, it was heavy.
Yes, exactly. Yes, true. Yes. Okay.
So, that's awesome. What else do you have lined up? I mean, it's kind of like I always feel like the spring is kind of like where the greatest concerts happen for some reason between March and May. And then in Germany we have Klavier Festival Ruhr on top, and then the summer festivals start to happen. So what are you looking forward?
I've seen also Pierre Antaille, harpsichord player in France. And he did something that I used to see when I was a kid. He played a full back suite, but the suite was composed by different movement of different suites put at the same tonality together. Basically, he played the prelude from the cello one to start. After that, he played two movements of violin sonata, suite, partita, sorry, and he finished by the lute suite second, the giga and the double. He put everything on the same tonality and he created a new suite. So it's and they were just movement that we play on the guitar, and that's funny because I remember I've seen that many years ago, and I've seen Toribio Santos doing this kind of thing in the 80s, and so it's funny to see that 40 years after done by a very successful clavecinist, harpsichord player, to create your own suite. And it was funny because it was just done by movement that we play on the guitar.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I mean, that is something. Bream, nobody does this at all, and nobody. At some point, the guitarists became like the majority, right? Became super purists and started doing urtext and the urtext of the urtext, etc. Right?
Yeah, sure.
But there's these editions of Julian Bream of the Rossinianas, right, where he takes different themes, the themes that he likes the best, and then he creates a Franken Rossiniana, and it's published, but nobody plays it. Like I'm feeling people might come back to that at some point, no?
Yeah, he's doing this with the Diabelli Sonata actually also.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
no, it's great. One of the best concerts I've seen like in my life. It's a local guy for Judicael. It's Pierre Lohan Aymar with Stefanovic. They came to the Pierre Boulez Salle, and I was sitting on the first row with Tal Hurwitz right next to me. We go to a lot of concerts together, and they play Visions de la Mer. And oh my God, man. Like, that is one of the greatest things I've seen. Like, it was like an out-of-body experience to hear like 40 minutes of Mission. Like, that was freaking incredible. Yeah, I feel we're very lucky, like, to be in this part of the world with all these concerts. It's it's pretty nice. I can see why you like to keep on coming back to this side of the pond, Fabio. Right?
Yeah, not that São Paulo is any bad. I mean, of course, we don't have
the best scene in Latin America, for sure.
Of course, we have an orchestra that has very incredible guests. Just next week we have a recital with Marc-André Hamelin there. I mean. Next, I'm going to watch Manuel Barrueco here in Alicante on Saturday. I'm really looking forward. I haven't seen Manuel playing solo for quite a long while, so I'm really looking forward to it. What else? When I come back to Brazil, I'll have so many concerts lined up that I won't be able to see that many concerts, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm probably going to the opera at least twice. I'm seeing Così fan tutti there. I mean, I have a very varied diet. I don't know any music that increases your cholesterol. So
yet we'll see. I mean, no, great conversation. I really love to learn how you think about learning and decisions. Maybe we can get into this kind of like tangent of deciding on what you play, because it sounds like, okay, the way you learn kind of stabilizes, like once you get a certain capability, and it becomes very organic. But when it's about setting up your concerts, and you're not bound to, like, I don't know, like very strict, like the downside of being in an agency, for instance, right, or like being in a major recording contract, is that many times, and I'm not gonna say who, like, I would not reveal too much, but like a major recording artist that used to be in a major label, right? And one of the reasons that he told me he's not there anymore is because they were trying to start to impose. It's like, well, why don't you record, like, Adelita and Recuerdos de la Alhambra and like that type of stuff? And then it's like, no, thanks, right? But that is a handicap many times, right? Because you don't necessarily have full freedom of like knowing what you're gonna play. It's like you talk to your manager and like it's like, but maybe next season you're gonna do this. But in your guys' case, there's much more freedom in like choosing your repertoire and like your program and stuff like that. So is there a formula or like some criteria that you guys use in like, okay, this year I'm gonna play this, or is it more again very organic on what's interesting you, or like a project that you might have or something like that? Like, how do you decide on your program and work towards that?
Okay. For me, it depends. It depends of the process. Sometimes there's some pieces I like, I learn, and for some reason it doesn't work, or I don't play it very good, and I don't know why, or I feel it doesn't work, or I am disappointed by the piece. I really want to play it, but for some reason there's some resistance. So there's some pieces, quite some pieces that I really learned that I was able to play, but I never perform, or I just play one time or two times, and I feel so disappointed that I just don't play it again, or I play it badly, and I say, okay, I will try later, and I never. So it really depends. Sometimes it's lately, I don't know, for some reason, there's some pieces I like, I give to some students, and when I really realize that the piece, I really like it, I play it. So I did that with actually some pieces lately that I learned after I gave to my students. Um, so there's no rules. I mean, sometimes there's some pieces I want to play for years and I never do it, and sometimes I feel I can do it. So there's no really reason, and sometimes it can be just, for example, now I'm going to learn the variation on Scriabin by Tansman, which is a very famous piece, and I'm just going to learn it because I have to record it.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it were, and it fits with my will, but I wouldn't have done that for sure because I gave many class on it, and I know very well the piece, but at the same time I know so well the piece that I don't want to spend time to put the fingers, because I have the feeling that I could play the piece tomorrow, but I know it won't happen, so it's kind of frustrated. So but I will do it just because somebody told me to propose me to record that. Yeah, so it really depends.
Well, but okay, but in this case, it's like kind of close. You already know kind of the piece, but it's not like you would, if someone proposed to record something completely different that you have no relation to, then that is a bigger leap to jump.
You mean a new piece?
Yeah,
a new piece. Somebody who composed a piece.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends of the piece. It depends of the composer. It's very difficult to say it, but of course there's some live composers that I like, so I would be probably, except if they start to do a very bad piece for me, I would definitely play it.
Will you record this like as a solo thing or as a part of an album or?
Yeah, I could do. It depends really of the piece and the composer, but if I like the piece, of course I will record.
No. I'm sorry. I mean the Tansman.
I don't know. This one is part of a project. It's the CD I did for GHA, and it fits perfectly. This is actually fast. I proposed me to do that, and I was thinking it was a good idea.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Just to complement that that thematic, no?
Yeah, I play Rachmaninoff's Scriabin, blah blah. So it fits.
For you, Fabio, I mean, you've gone back to recording more often with the collaboration with Marcelo, right? So when you're doing these Americas albums, and we talk about those. So in selecting the topic, right? Like, or like the theme of the album and that whole stuff, like, is that full your decision, or is it more like, oh, we want to release this kind of thing, and there's a match there? Like, how do you?
It's fully my decision. My projects. I try not to do anything that is too arcane. So I mean, me and Marcelo, we can agree about that, and I'm not recording only with them. I mean, I've just recorded an album with a singer for Naxos and another album with piano. So I have several balls in the air at the same time. But in the case of my solo albums, I'm a victim of the legacy trap. I just every time I learn a piece and I feel that I play well, I want to leave it for posterity for some reason. I mean, that's a disease, but I cannot fight it. So I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying to take advantage of the fact that my techniques is still there to record the hardest things. I don't know what it will be like in 10 years time. So if I'm going to do, a big recording of some difficult pieces, I'll better, Rodrigo or something like that. I'll better do it right now. Or Bach, for me, technically speaking, is one of the hardest things.
That's an interesting one, actually, because that's something that happened to me, and that's the reason I recorded an album. It's because, I've taken masterclass with you both for years. I know you both for years, but and then I changed my career. I was like, I want to be able to tell my kids someday, like, hey, your dad played guitar at some point, right? So, and this is kind of where it was, like, but that was very super personal, right? But from your perspective, if there's some, and I had in the back of my head, it's like, it would be good to at some point before I'm too rusty, like, record this kind of stuff, right? Do you also keep like, both of you, do you keep like something that you're like, maybe not today, maybe next year, not next year, but like, I want to be able to, before I hang the guitar, like, I want to record this?
In my case, there are some pieces that are extremely demanding. I haven't recorded yet. And there are pieces that I think I play very well, like Music of Memory by Nicholas Moll, the Blue Guitar by Michael Tippett, the first sonata by Hans Werner Henze. If I don't record that before age 65, I might never do it. So at the same time, my choice of repertoire, I live out of performing. So I don't say no. So for instance, in 2 weeks' time, I'll have to play in a place in Brazil called São Luís for a project that is part of the national heritage. So it's a project that joins music with architecture. I'm going to play in an old palace, and there's a historian who is coming to talk about the history of the place, which is actually a city that was founded by the French back in the 16th century. And I'll have to play some French Renaissance music, something I haven't done since I was a teenager. But I don't say no. That is my profession. That is my main source of income. So I'm always learning new repertoire for that kind of thing. Just after that, less than a month after that, I'll have to play a new concerto by Benjamin Dwyer. I'm still learning. So I try to keep my life very organized. So I managed to learn all those pieces with a minimum of stress. Of course, there is a lot of stress, but
but you have kind of like that bucket list kind of pieces that would be nice to kind of leave there, right? Now, what about you, Judicael? Like, you play so many varied things as well. Like, do you have some things you want to do for sure?
No,
like in the coming
actually,
years?
no, really, no, I don't have.
Really?
Sometimes there's some stuff I want to do, and in fact, I don't change. So I can't say that there's one piece. The only stuff I would like maybe to do is something linked with my youth that I would like to do for my dad or whatever. But for me, nothing. There's nothing I really think I should play it or whatever. I play Saturday a concert in Deso, and it's a place. They will be my ex-teacher, so I will play some pieces that I learned when he was my teacher, and I could record those pieces. But it's nothing linked with something very special. No, there's no specific piece I really want to. I say, okay, I need to play that before not be able to play.
No, makes sense.
I'm like this, but it depends of the mythology you have of the music. I remember one thing kind of sad. My teacher, yes, he was my teacher. Alberto Pons was somehow my teacher. Was all the time saying that he wanted to play the Chaconne by Bach and never play it, and after that it was too late. I remember this. But I won't have this problem because there's nothing I really want to play specifically. So, so I will never have this kind of problem.
Or because you can play everything until, like, I don't know, you're like 90 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the new generations, like, because we're all getting older. I'm also not getting younger, right? And I kept on thinking. I saw, of course, Judicael, and you're gonna see Manuel soon, Fabio, and I was just surprised, because Manuel and David, they're getting up there, but I guess it's because like technique just evolved, or like, just the guitar as an instrument matured, that we're having artists that just last long. It's kind of like soccer players, right? Like now, before people would retire when they were like 30, and now people are playing till they're 40. I feel that's starting to happen, right? So I'm be really interesting to see like really high level of performance until much later on, because even for like beloved people like we can mention, like from the past generation, once they hit like 75, 80, like 70, etc., things just started to decay like really fast, right? Like and maybe even before that, right? So I think people are more prepared now to kind of tackle, to have longer careers. Do you feel like that? And because I see Manuel, I see that David, and they still got it. It's like,
I think it has is a combination of good genes with eventually healthy habits. I mean, if you keep learning, you are more likely to keep mentally alert for longer, for sure. So that is a good thing. I mean, just keep repeating what you've done all your life is not very conducive to a good mental condition to keep your longevity. But I mean, the genes are paramount. I think the natural inclination for that is paramount. I was just noticing that I'm 57 now. Huh? First time I saw Julian Breen play, he was my age. He was 57, and he was well past his prime. So, I mean, but then he smoked a lot, he drank a lot, he was very regular, and maybe, yeah, and he had an accident.
I now you tell me that, I realize you say about pieces I would like to play. I would like to do for my jubilee, for my 100 years, the 12 studies by Villa-Lobos concert. So I will do that. So
That'll be good.
This is my goal.
But the Eshik edition, or like
the 12 studies when I'm and I give myself 1 hour and 30 minutes to do it. The 12 studies.
I promise to be there to watch you.
live recording.
No, but, no joke. I think, of course, the genes are very important, but also it kind of depends on the instrument. For example, for violin, you don't hear. I mean, at a certain age, you have a problem to hear precisely the pitch. Yeah. So objectively, you have a huge problem for this instrument. There's some instrument where the physical thing is also stronger than other. And obviously, there's also the repertory, because on the repertory, for example, on piano, you have a bunch of repertory that you wouldn't call extremely difficult, that you can play even if you have less strength. So it's difficult to compare with all those guys who were like 80, 85, who were playing amazing, that you see on piano, that you don't see so much in violin or cello. So my feeling is on guitar, we have the fret. So even if you don't hear very well, if you hear enough to tune the guitar correctly, it would be fine. After that, about physical strengths and everything, I don't know, because I don't play another instrument. So it's very difficult for me to compare how physically difficult it is in comparison of trumpet, in comparison of piano, in comparison. So it might be more difficult than the piano, for sure.
The piano is much more forgiving.
Yeah.
I mean, like Menachem Pressler,
Yes.
Just
doing, yes. So, wow, you did a very good imitation of Menachem Pressler.
No, man.
Maybe
we're gonna get canceled.
Maybe you should. You will be canceled for that.
We're gonna get banned.
Yes, but it was pretty terrible what you did. I am Judicael, and I disapprove this moment.
Yeah, let's all condemn. I was not. I was generalizing, moving my hands as a pianist, not specifically him. Oh my God! Oh, this is too much fun, man. No, I mean, but that is very true. In that concert that I saw of Barenboim, for instance, they played a very, very small piece of in duo with Marta Argerich, and you could barely touch the keys, like barely touch it. But you know, it was an easy enough piece that it was just beautiful as an encore that you can still get away with it. But yeah, I mean, full-fledged concert still when you have that. Nobody knows really what illness he has, but like he just cannot play. Like there comes a point in which which is the great advantage of conductors, right? I mean, when I was in San Francisco, I went to see a lot Herbert Blomstedt conduct. No, and that was 5 years ago. And he was 87 or 89, and now he's like 93 or 94, and he's still with the Berliner Philharmoniker and going on tour, and like it's just I mean, it's because you don't actually have to play, right? Then it's just like your cognitive ideas transmitted, right? But yeah, I mean, so yeah, all that goes to say, Fabio, I think I think you're gonna have an amazing concert. Like Manuel still got it. I was really, in fact, he probably played better last time I saw him in Koblenz than maybe like when I saw him 5 years ago or something. It's it's interesting sometimes the maturity, or like how that adds. I saw a different kind of energy also, like people coming back from the pandemic. It was just more special somehow, I guess, right? So yeah, I mean, send a big hug also to Manuel and ask her if she's around. Like, yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, folks. Thanks so much. I mean, let's keep this one short. I really appreciate the time. It's been an awesome convo. We'll continue to chat, and the news is that I'm actually going to be in the States. So I know you both are going to be in the GFA. So we might actually make this happen.
Ooh, that's great.
Yeah, so let's try to do one of these live. It'll be cool, like
definitely.
some guests and stuff like that.
Definitely.
No? That'll be awesome. Have a good night, folks. Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye. Great talking to you.